Hey, good evening, everyone. Actually, it's a good afternoon here. It's raining and some thunder. And so it seems really dark, like it's later than it actually is. In any case, it's May 19th, 2025. Thanks for joining me, Dorothea, on Through an Orthodox Christian Lens. I just wanted to give you a little bit more information on the aid issue and what's going on in Israel with Gaza and this intense operation, this intense military operation against Gaza, which again is basically against a bunch of civilians. And it's terrible. I'm reading like 20 countries are telling them to open more aid up. So I just want to give you this little talk with Alistair Cook that I mentioned in my last video. From his, I had read his site, but I'm going to let you hear from his words what's going on, and this was this morning.
Ceasefire.
I think, I doubt it. I don't think there's any intention of that. We've seen what is clearly happening. We called it in a paper that we wrote on the Conflict Forum Substack, the moral meltdown in Israel. And I just want to underline, because people may not really sort of understand this because they're not following it so closely, this is a real pivot point that is taking place, not just in Israel, but for the West as a whole. And what it is essentially, I mean, let's not go get tangled up in the details, but essentially, Israel is completely divided. On the one hand, you have, if you like, those who see themselves as European Jews that have come from Europe and are Europeanized. And they, on the other hand, you have the Messianic people of Ben-Gvir and the Prime Minister and the right who are looking to Amalek, to, if you like, removing the Palestinians from Gaza altogether, either killing them by bombing them, or either sending them somewhere else. Libya has been mentioned, but I don't know if that's going to work at all. But this is a moral divide now. And long ago, someone warned the West very clearly. He said, what will happen is, in due course, under pressure, the West would turn on its own moral values and then start consuming itself like an Ouroboros. And this is what's happening in Israel. It is now becoming violent. The police are attacking the demonstrators who are demonstrating for the release of hostages. So half of Israel is doing that. And you find editorials, you find other pieces in the Hebrew press, in the English language press, like Haaretz editorial, that say, we can't go on with this.
Have you seen anything like this at the drugstore? No, you haven't. Look, Optic is making the most beautiful.
Just killing Palestinians, bombing tents, seeing children burnt alive. We can't do this. And what's happened? I mean, we are supposed to have, you remember that Hamas released the American dual citizen, Eden Alexander, the other day, and it was understood from the American mediators, Witkoff and his colleagues, that would result in food and resources coming into Gaza. They're not coming into Gaza. They are still in a line outside of Gaza. And there are people, as the UN human rights representative says, there are children starving to death. And Netanyahu had to admit this just the other day. And he said, listen, look, I have senators coming to me, friendly, people who have never been more friendly to Israel. And they're saying, look, we will give you what you want. You want weapons, we will give you protection in the Security Council. But listen, we just cannot endure seeing children starve to death. You've got to do something about it. Well, that still hasn't happened. And where's Witkoff, who played a very important part to begin with? He went to Netanyahu on Shabbat and he said, listen, you had a deal Stick with it. Do it. There's no sign of that today. And so we have to wait till the 25th when Netanyahu is saying that. And Netanyahu hopes to get through this period with a short ceasefire agreed with Hamas, and then some introduction of limited resources, food and water going in. The last few days, every day, it's been 70, 90, 100, 120 Palestinians killed at night in the bombing raids of this new incursion. But I want to move to the second fracture, which is opening out, which is just as important, because it's in the United States and in Europe. In the United States, as you know, about 80% of the Jews living in the United States are Reform Jews. And many of them are finding the same moral dilemma that I've just described in Israel. They don't like, and when those senators spoke to Netanyahu in that way and said, listen, we just can't go on like this. We can't see children burnt alive in tents. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable in the US, and it's not acceptable to half of the Israeli population. This is the pivot, the crucial point where, if you like, the West turns on its own moral values and starts to, if you like, destroy itself in this process. Same in Europe. There's videos going around about Meloni being attacked strongly about Gaza, and others too across Europe. This is the moral dilemma that is coming. And we see it in other ways. And this is facing Trump now very much, what to do. And we hear very clearly, I'm told, that now there is this moral divide taking place within his team. On the one hand, Witkoff and Vance on one side, but Rubio totally at odds with Witkoff and trying to remove him from the process. Perhaps that's why Witkoff is not there. Why isn't there an American official down there at Gaza and saying, look, just open those gates, open them, let food in. Of course it would happen, but there's none. So we have to draw our conclusions from that, what that means. And then there's a third fracture, and this is very important fracture too, I think, which is with Iran. Because you've probably seen on ABC in the last day, Witkoff has said the absolute red line for Trump is no enrichment, not ever, in Iran. That is the red line, and that's what we're seeking. And I put on that, I wrote that actually what has happened is almost the entire Senate Republicans have written a letter to Trump saying one thing, that they will not accept an agreement which allows the infrastructure of enrichment to stay in Iran. And 177 of the House have been even more explicit, I think, in the parallel letter that has gone to Trump, which is saying exactly no enrichment at all, even though they must know, Iran will never accept that. You recall I was in Iran about a week or 10 days ago and talked to many people that they won't accept that. And then I contrasted, what do you see in the Maryland polling that has just come out? It shows that 70% of Americans as a whole want to deal with Iran. And that is true both of the majority in the Republican and the Democrats. And only something, I don't have the figures in front of me, but only something like 25% of Republicans are in favor of military action. So you have this divide too. The popular sentiment, of course, which will probably be ignored, but the popular sentiment wants a deal, doesn't want a war with Iran. I don't think the populists, I don't think the side of Vance and the others.
Real ones know. Tokyo Joe's serves the best teriyaki, sushi, and poke in Colorado.
Wants a war with Iran. And yet, all of the Senate Republicans have signed on to this letter, and 177 of the Republicans in the House have similarly signed on, saying no enrichment. Now, I don't think that this means we're going to have a huge war with Iran, but that's a different issue. I can talk about that some other time if you like. But I don't think that is probably going to happen. But
it certainly would give Donald Trump comfort if he were to attack Iran, knowing that half the Senate, at least half, and a little more than half the House.
Okay, so what Alistair Crook shared here is very important. The aid was not going in as I thought it was at the reports I'd heard yesterday. But last night and then this morning and this was early this morning when this interview was done, at that time, the aid was not coming into Gaza. This was reiterated by Al Jazeera 21 hours ago. Israel's aid announcement doesn't mean aid will flow into Gaza. Israel's announcement that it will allow desperately needed aid into Gaza does not translate into action, a U.S.-based analyst warns. We have not seen anything happen yet. One hopes it will happen immediately and it begins to meet the needs of the people on the ground, said Youssef Monet, from the Arab Center, Washington, D.C. But everything we've seen historically suggests this is not something going to be done in any way out of care or respect for the needs of the Palestinian people. Monet, I guess, said the announcement may have been made to stave off the pressure mounting on Israel to halt its punishing blockade that threatens famine in Gaza. I wouldn't call this any kind of significant change just yet. Very, very, very disappointing. This is so evil, to starve people deliberately and bombing innocent people, and people who, they're not combatants. They're not the army. They're civilians. They're innocent families and people with no weapons to defend themselves. So the latest thing that I heard, I'm going to share with you, and also what he said about the Iran deal. It is nice to know that 70% of people do want a agreement with Iran, the U.S.-Iran agreement. It's nice to know that that's the majority of the people. I have read 20 different countries are telling Netanyahu and his government to let the aid into Gaza. I just read recently, before I started this video, the UK, France, and Canada are demanding that aid comes in, or there will be concrete actions. Now, of course, that's in quotes. Now, I don't know what that exactly means, because what will really be done with these three countries? I mean, they don't tend to get involved too much at that level, it seems to me. But still, it's just shameful that we aren't saying that. Everybody else is saying it but us. This is why we're gonna reap what we sow. We've done so many things like this in this country. This is why things are going to happen, unfortunately, in the prophecies. In any case, I'm going to share this last one that came out today, this article from Middle East Monitor. And it says, U.S. says 9 aid trucks cleared for Gaza are a drop in the ocean. Okay. The UN said Monday that 9 trucks carrying humanitarian aid were cleared to enter the Gaza Strip via the Karim Shalom crossing after Israel temporarily eased a nearly 3-month blockade. UN Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator Tom Fletcher said the Israeli authorities had allowed the limited resumption of aid, delivering after intensifying its military offensive. This is a welcome development that should remain in place, Fletcher said in his statement, but it is a drop in the ocean of what is urgently needed, and significantly more aid must be allowed into Gaza starting tomorrow morning. According to the UN, Gaza needs at least 500 aid trucks per day to meet the population's basic needs. 500 a day, because you have like 2 million people in the strip. Israel's coordinator of government activities in the territories said 5 trucks, including food for babies, entered Gaza via Kerem Shalom, the first such delivery since March 2nd. Well, how many babies and toddlers and children are there? Tons. Now, they lost a lot. They were murdered, along with women and elderly and families and doctors and journalists and paramedics and everything else. But 5 is very skimpy. I don't see how it's going to serve that many. So this person, of course, 9 trucks is better than no trucks, but we need a massive uptick in humanitarian aid, Jujarek said. We need a massive arrival of food, cooking oil, and fuel to meet these needs. Yes, because you need the fuel, you need the hospitals have all been bombed. There's none left, apparently, standing. Just terrible. I heard yesterday that what was it? This man was interviewed on Sky News, and he was saying there was underground tunnels under this latest hospital. He was saying that, oh, well, Hamas is under there. This is all BS. It's BS, and I'm sick and tired of it. And the anchor there said, no, those are water leak lines, water stains and things like that, from pipes and things like that. It is not tunnels. And it's disgusting, but not surprising that the majority of the Republicans are against a deal, against any enrichment of uranium that the Iranians are using. They have that for their hospitals, the cancer units. They use those. Apparently, they're called isotopes. They help with research and all that for diseases and such as cancer. And because Republicans, the majority of them, hate any they consider any, basically most countries in the Middle East, they just consider to be terrorists, and they don't want Iran to have anything for their, as I just mentioned, that they need it for. And they were okay with 3.6% enriched uranium just for their medical purposes and their research and science, not having to do with medical stuff, not for building a bomb. But no, as you see, it flip-flop. First, Witkoff was saying, oh yes, we're fine with that, but no. You have AIPAC, you have the neocons in our government, in our Congress, in Trump's administration. No, you can't do that. Nope, can't do that. They don't like Rubio. 'Cause Rubio, Rubio, 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 And so, again, that's it. That's one issue. Like I said, the aid issue is vital. 9 trucks is better than none, but this is unacceptable. It's inhumane. It's cruel. It's evil. It's demonic, satanic. That's not how you treat other human beings. I sure hope that this changes. If any other information comes out about this later on, either way, I will be back to do a video on it. Thanks so much for watching. Please share, follow my channel, like my videos if you like them, share my channel, share my videos. You know, follow me on Rumble, subscribe to my channel on YouTube if you'd like. Thanks so much for your support. Please share any comments you have on these issues. And I'll be back sometime soon. And I hope you have a great evening. Until next time. Thanks.